think you'd agree it has been a little bit crazy globally for well over a year now. One part of that craziness is the way that we respond to all of the crises, if we can use that word, and just the disturbances, the hiccups, and all of them come together, and the intensity of the, shall we call anxiety, is raised because of one thing after the other. So we go back to the spring of 2020, and we all know about the big news of this strange virus that is starting to spread over the world, and we're not quite sure what to do with it. And then people start finding solutions, what they think are solutions, and then some work, some don't. And then you have the whole debate over vaccinations and who should get them and who shouldn't, and who should get them first, and should you mask, how many masks should you wear, what's the tension between government protection and individual freedom, and all these things continue to go on. Well, then, and on top of that, we more recently now we have discussions about some world issues. We have the devastating storms in the southern part of the lower 48. We have the floodings. We have the hurricanes. We have the tornadoes. We have the devastation. We have more shootings. We have a major deal going on, as you're well aware, in Afghanistan, and our relationship with what's going on over there, and great political division there, and a lot of people who are very scared, some who are Americans, some who are Afghanis, some who are trapped, some who have left family behind, and there's just a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress going on in our world right now. I know that personally. There's things that in my own world, I'm like, what do I do with this? How do I feel about this? And I was just talking to a good friend, talking about that in my role as a pastor, I talk to people in our congregation and beyond that have very different views on all the subjects I've just raised, that there are people firmly in standing on their position. And then I have a person, the very next day, I talk to one who I equally love that has the polar opposite opinion. So I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm not here to tell you what is right and what is wrong. There's a lot of people that know a whole lot more about these things than I do. But what I do know is that we are not the only ones that have faced issues in our time that have caused anxiety. Throughout all of time, since Genesis 3, we have had a broken world. And there are men and women who have been in great states of anxiety throughout all of history. And there are people of faith who have been on polar opposites of issues all throughout the history of Christianity. So what do we do with all this? What do you do if you're feeling a bit anxious, if you're feeling a little troubled, if you're a little confused on how to navigate this time in which you're in? I can't think of a better passage to answer that question than in the final chapter of Paul's words to the people in Philippi, that town in the path of Paul as he carries on his ministry of spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ. He recognizes these people who are living under Roman authority, which wasn't all that great if you weren't Roman. He says, let me tell you how to live life. I'm just going to read his words, talk about them briefly, and then encourage you to go and read them yourself and keep these in front of you during these very troubling and anxiety-causing times. Paul writes, Philippians 4, beginning in verse 4, rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. These are powerful verses, Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 through 8. Write those down, get to know them. I recently saw a cartoon, this one of those one-column cartoons, and it was a man sitting in front of a TV, and the question above it in the bubble was, how do you lower your stress or something to this degree? And then the next frame shows him clicking off on the TV. That's one way to think about such things. I don't really recommend avoiding all things. We do need to take breaks. So if you're addicted to watching the news and it's just eating you up, click, turn it off. But don't avoid it completely. What he's saying here is, in the midst of all this, in the midst of all that you're going through, be rejoicing. Do not be anxious, but in every situation through prayer and petition. We are to do this, and it goes on to talk about thankfulness. So how do we do this? Well, we take our anxiety, we turn it into prayer and petition. So what are these issues I raised earlier? What are the ones that are troubling you most? Pray about it. What if you and a friend, or maybe even a dear family member, maybe even your spouse, have very differing views on some of the political things going on in our world, or medical things going on in our world? What if you have very differing views with the person you love? What do? Well, instead of being anxious about it, you pray. You raise petitions. You thank God for the person and what you really enjoy about. Don't think upon the things that trouble you. Again, he says this. Think about what is true and noble and right and pure and lovely and admirable and excellent and praiseworthy. These are the things upon which we should think. So again, that doesn't mean don't shut out the world. You're going to see some things that aren't true and admirable, but don't spend your time contemplating them and focusing on them. Focus on what is right and pure and good, and that is going to make all the difference in the world. Again, I can't solve all these issues. I don't even have opinions on all issues that have much weight because I'm not educated enough in some of these areas of politics and medicine, etc. But I do know that in all areas of life, in everything, I need to let my gentleness be evident to all, because the Lord is near, and know that the peace of Christ, which transcends all understanding, will guard what? Hearts and minds. We've got a lot of broken hearts. We've got a lot of anxious minds. And the only thing that's going to take care of that is the peace of Christ. And where does the peace of Christ come from? It comes from focusing on things that Christ focused on. And it focuses on his love, his nearness. And you can do that by focusing on this thing that Jesus told us to focus on. Remember this. In the midst of all this anxiety, in the midst of all the things, he says, here's what you do. Love my Father, love your neighbor. So that's your task. It's not to go solve the world's problems. It's not to go post your latest opinion. It's to go out, love God, and love your neighbor. And that's going to make a huge difference in this world as you live your everyday, ordinary life. And everything you say, everything you do, to the glory of God. Let's try to do that together as we stop being anxious and be prayerful. Thanks be to God. Thanks for watching.